Hello everyone, my name is Peter Wolfgang. I am the president of Family Institute of Connecticut Action, and we are here today, all of us, as part of Let Kids Be Kids. This is a coalition of concerned parents and organizations that have presented two bills to the Education Committee for which we are seeking a public hearing. Those two bills are Let Kids Be Kids and Save Women's Sports. We're asking for the sports bill to be heard because there is a lawsuit by Connecticut girls that has been revived and should be addressed by the legislature. Biological boys should not be playing in women's sports. It is unsafe and unfair. As for the Let Kids Be Kids bill, our concern there is that kids are best protected when parents are involved. Parents, not the state. The state should not come between parents and their children. Consider some things that have occurred just in the last year. The Department of Children and Families, DCF, has a hotline on its website by which children can report their own parents to the state if they feel that the children are not being, the parents are not being affirming enough in their gender identity. Why? Why report this to the state? Attorney General William Tong has filed an amicus brief in a case involving a Connecticut mother in which General Tong actually argues in favor of schools deceiving parents about their children, about the schools transitioning the children from one gender identity to another. Attorney General Tong has put the state out in favor of that. There was a report that at least 27 school districts in the state of Connecticut have it as their official policy to transition children from one sex to the other without parental knowledge, without the parents' approval or even their knowledge that this is happening. There was a front page article in the Hartford Courant on August 1st of last year where they quoted activists in favor of these policies, saying the policies themselves were not enough, they want a state law. This is a direct quote from the Courant article. If that was a state law, that would be the end of the conversation. Like, this is a state law. You don't have a choice. You can lose funding, lose your job, lose this, you lose that. The stakes become much higher. So these are the reasons why we have presented these two bills to the Education Committee and why we are seeking a public hearing for them. I have to say, in all the years that I've been involved in these sorts of issues, I've never seen a social contagion like this. This is not the usual boxes. These are not the usual categories. At the Family Institute, we have liberal parents from across the state calling us, asking for our help, saying we never thought we'd call the Family Institute, but the schools are transitioning our children from one gender identity to the other without our say-so, without our approval, without our permission. Can you please help us? And for that reason, we are part of this coalition. We are seeking these things. And what we are seeking is very basic. We're not asking for a lot here. All we want is a public hearing on these bills so that parents can be involved in these decisions. And these speakers that you're about to hear from are going to speak from their personal experience of these matters. So we're going to have, first up, we're going to have Christine Rebstock, the Executive Director of Media and Communications for LGBTs United, Christina Mitchell, a Connecticut mom whose daughter was personally impacted by a policy that allowed two males to compete and take away championships that Chelsea, her daughter, would have won. We also have several elected officials standing here for whom we are so grateful. Perhaps they should speak first because I know they have to run some of them to other commitments. And then we're going to hear as well from Christopher Healy, who is the Executive Director of the Connecticut Catholic Public Affairs Conference. So let's maybe begin with, I don't know, Rob, I know you have to run. Do you want to speak first?
Sure.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to come and stand with these fine people today to help support this legislation. I've introduced my own bills year after year that do similar things that protect the rights of parents and protect women in school sports, for example. But I'm delighted to support the Family Institute and the two bills that they have. And I would encourage my colleagues in the legislature to get behind these bills, at least give an opportunity to have a hearing so that the people of Connecticut can actually understand these issues in depth, and so can the lawmakers in our state. what's happening in our world, I think, is a crisis in some respects. In many states, they've actually gotten it right. I'm understanding in Iowa today, they're passing legislation that would prevent the activity of having biological males competing against women in sports. And Connecticut needs to get behind that as well. So I'm just delighted to be here and stand with everyone and speak my voice on this issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Christine Rebstock. Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christine Rebstock, the Executive Director of Media and Communications for LGBTS United. And we at LGBTS United want to say we stand with parents and parental rights groups to call for an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion curriculums in government public schools, as well as the sexualization and medical transition of minor-aged kids. In addition, LGBTS United objects to gender transition for minor-aged kids that emanates from outside the home and is done without parental knowledge and consent. I am the TS for transsexual. Those were the actual words until a decade ago under a certain president's wanting to radically transform our country. The medical disorder was changed from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria. It should be called sexual identity disorder. It is a mental health and medical disorder. And we've seen the mental health aspect of trans care in the last few years be diminished. That is a line of, you know what, I object to that. We need proper mental health vetting. What we're seeing for especially our young kids with pre-existing mental health conditions, they are getting rubber stamped with a gender dysphoria diagnosis. So we're leading down the path of getting on puberty blockers, which, by the way, if you have Lupron in them, they are used to castrate sex offenders, but they're being sold to you, we the people, as safe and reversible. Gambling with a child's puberty is gambling with their long-term future health. I and we at LGBTS United are not going to be quiet and sit by and let this keep happening. Everything with trans issues, I think, is wrong, and we are going to tackle that. And all these matters have to come from the home. Like a school wanting to hide a kid's sexual preference is one thing, but gender identity is another, because it leads to social transition. As High Tops, that's a group in New Jersey, sponsored a clothing closet. So when kids go to school, they could change into their perceived true self and use a different set of pronouns, name, and clothing, then change back and go home. Again, we're hiding this from parents. In Maine, Amber Levine's daughter had a chest binder. The school system there was taking it upon themselves to transition this child. We have a state statute, 19A-14C, that allows mental health professionals to treat minor-age kids without parental knowledge and consent. That's the pathway to getting a visit to the endocrinologist to start medical transition. This is wrong, and that's why we stand with Family Institute of Connecticut to say is enough. On the issue of trans girls in girls' sports and trans women in women's sports, I do belong to the United States Bowling Congress. I am considered a woman, but Leah Thomas opened my eyes to about 27 months ago. She followed the NCAA rules. So she didn't cheat, but the policy is wrong. She was the proverbial Titanic hitting the iceberg. So 11 months ago, I took it upon myself to reach out to Glenn Lungarini of the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference. I submitted a proposal to him with time and medical guidelines that USA Swimming Rules uses. As of today, I haven't heard back. Had the CIAC reached out to me and we could have made that policy, we wouldn't be talking about a Save Girls Sports bill. And when I emailed the United States Bowling Congress to ask for someone like me to be banned from elite level competition, they said they were bound by the United States Olympic Committee rules. So if you want to trans women out of women's sports, we the people need to pressure the international and United States Olympic and Paralympic committees, as well as the NCAA, to call for a ban on trans women in elite women's sports. And we got to put some pressure on the CIAC to adopt the medical guidelines I suggested. This will take care of all the problems. Thank you, and thank you for having me speak today.
Thank you so much, Christina. I just want to emphasize again the unusual nature of this coalition. In all the years that the Family Institute and the Connecticut Catholic Conference have been up here at the state capitol on the fraught topic of human sexuality, I don't think we ever imagined that someday we would be in a press conference in a coalition with a group called LGBTs United. And that goes to the nature of this issue and how broad a reach it has. This is not the usual categories of liberal versus conservative, religious versus secular, and so forth. Regardless of whatever ideological or political party commitments a person may have, there is a broad consensus that children need their parents. This is not about human sexuality so much as it is about children and parents, and also about the safety and fairness for girls in sports. And with that, let's go to our next speaker, Christina Mitchell.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christy Mitchell, and I'm here today as the mother of 3 daughters. My husband and I moved to Connecticut 23 years ago, and we've raised our family here. When the girls were little, I never imagined they would one day have to compete against boys. I had no idea that Connecticut was a state where they wouldn't have the right to fair competition or safety on the athletic field. Now I know better. In 2017, my middle daughter, Chelsea, had to compete against a male in the finals of the 100-meter dash at the Connecticut State Open Championship. That race was almost 7 years ago, and Chelsea was just 14 years old. For her entire high school career, 2 male athletes were allowed to dominate girls' track in Connecticut. Chelsea raced against them dozens of times and faced them in nearly every state and regional championship meet. Over and over again, she lost podium spots, media recognition, awards, and eventually 4 state championship titles. Chelsea, and many other girls too, lost moments in time that they can never get back. Some of you may remember what happened. We stood by the track in disbelief as 2 males were allowed to take home 15 girls' state championship titles. We watched in dismay as officials wiped away 17 meet records held by amazing female track athletes from our state, giving credit instead to males for the best female times. Hundreds of girls in Connecticut were denied fair competition and advancement opportunities by the unelected officials at the CIAC, who recklessly ignored biological reality in order to affirm the identity beliefs of boys. It was sickening to watch these officials disregard and disrespect young girls in their right to fair competition, and shocking to watch the Connecticut media elevate and celebrate boys winning girls' races. It was sad to realize that good coaches all across our state knew this was wrong, but were afraid to say so for fear of losing their jobs. During those years, I spoke with several people in our state government, lawmakers, officials in the governor's office, the AG's office, the Department of Education, the local school board. And while many of them agreed it was a problem, it was always someone else's problem. Not one of them was willing to step up and defend our daughters. Better to let the teenage girls go it alone. This led us, during Chelsea's senior year of high school, with the help of Alliance Defending Freedom, to file the first federal lawsuit in the country to protect female athletes from being forced to compete against biological boys in their sport. It was almost 4 years ago to the day, outside this Capitol building, where Chelsea, Selena, and Alana stepped up to the podium and said enough. And while our fight to restore their records continues, the courage of these teenage girls from Connecticut sparked a movement across the country. Since then, 24 states have passed laws to protect their female athletes. It is beyond time that Connecticut does the same. To be clear, the officials at the CIAC continue to allow males to self-identify into the female category and compete against girls. My youngest daughter, now a senior in high school, must show up at track meets and hope there aren't any males in her competition that day. It is a disgrace that it is still happening and should be an absolute embarrassment for those who hold the power to fix it. To the lawmakers in Connecticut, women and girls deserve fair competition and safety in sports. At every level, in every sport, it is time to show leadership, apologize for the harm that's been done, and commit to ensuring that girls and women will have safety and fairness in their sports in Connecticut going forward. It's time to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. We are honored to have several elected representatives here. Ann Dauphiné, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I think the bills have been well explained. Speaking to the sports bill, we all know that males are born males and females are born females. The science is settled, as they say, correct? You can try and change that and identify something different, but we know males, for the larger part, are much stronger physically than females. So we are 100% behind this bill. And then the other bill, which is really merely a parental notification bill, that's all we're asking for at this point. All kinds of things are going on with your children and parents have no idea, none, what's going on. Whether it be referring to your child as a different gender, dressing differently when they go to school, wanting to transition, those things are life-changing things, and parents must be involved. Our state has just gone overboard with taking those parental authority things that all of us have taken for granted, and we must stand up against what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dauphiné. We also have Representative Mark Anderson of New Hartford and Granby, right?
In Barkhampton and Heartland. Small towns not to be forgotten. I am proud to be an introducer of both of these bills. Regarding the first bill, it's about protecting children. Parents are the rightful first and best protector of children. They are not the government's children. In a free society, government's role must be limited. Regarding the second bill, it's about protecting women and girls. If you are for women's rights, then you must be for protecting women's sports. These two bills are based on true and sound principles. The concepts enjoy broad support among the people of Connecticut. I urge the leadership of the Education Committee to raise these bills. I encourage my fellow legislators to get on board today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Anderson. We also have State Representative Mitch Bolinsky of Newtown.
Good morning. Mitch Bolinsky from Newtown, and I just wanted to say I identify as a parent. And my wife and I raised two outstanding young adults who have all their ducks in a row and are out there being successful contributing members of society. Notice I haven't said a word about anybody's gender identification, because to me this issue is a very, very simple one of right and wrong. Parents are the only highest authority when it comes to knowing what their children are, what their children aspire to be, and helping them deal with difficult issues that they cannot reason through themselves. When a school, a teacher, an individual intercedes and decides that they can usurp that parental role, very frankly, that goes against everything that I hold dear about the parent and child relationship. So I'm not going to speak about specific pieces of legislation because everybody else has done a really nice job with that. But you cannot take parents out of the equation when it comes to their child and their well-being and their wish to have what my wife and I share, which is two wonderful, contributing, upstanding, tax-paying citizens. They got here with all the bumps without having interventionalists in schools try to steer them. And that's important to us. And as far as the boys that are competing in girls' sports, it's also been said very clearly, very well. And I will just say that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a simple matter of fairness. There are physiological differences that just make it dangerous, unfair, and if you want to do something to puncture the soul of a young female athlete, put her in a pool next to a boy. That's just, it's just a violation of that parental oversight as well. So I stand with hundreds and hundreds of constituents that I hear from every day. My parents in my constituency, they matter. They matter much more than policies from on high. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Belinsky. Next, we will hear from Representative Gail Mastro-Francesco.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and thank you to the Family of Institute for all that you're doing to protect parental rights. I honestly have to say that I never thought I'd see the day that I'd be standing up here having to defend one's identity, one's gender. It's really unfortunate what is happening in this country and in this state. As you have heard before, we don't co-parent with the government. It's very, very important that parents have total control and say in their parents' education and what they are doing. Those are the decisions that are left only to the parents, and the state should not be interfering. I fully support the legislation that hopefully we should have at least have a public hearing on, and I think the committee might be surprised of how many people will come out and testify and share their stories and their hardships and what they have been through. You know, for years, women's sports, men playing in women's sports, for years, women have fought for rights. And in one swoop, that really has been taken away. I would like to know, for the years that the activists have fought for women's rights, where are they today? Thank you, everyone. I fully support this effort, and I encourage my colleagues to do, and it all begins with the people here in this audience and standing up and speaking out and fighting for your family, because your families are really what's important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. Before I go to our two final speakers, are there any other legislators here in the room who had wanted to speak that I missed? Sure. Representative Donna Veach is making her way to the microphone. Thank you so much, Representative Veach.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for hosting this. I just want to put out there that I am the mother of 3 wonderful daughters that did compete through high school, not really much through college, but I firmly support both of these legislations that are being put forward. Men should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. That's the bottom line. They are superior in their strength. Just for starters. The other part of this piece, and my colleagues have certainly covered every aspect of it, is that parents should be allowed to parent. I don't want the state or the state of Connecticut or the school systems telling me what I can and can't do with my children that my husband and myself have raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Veach. Karen, did you want to speak? I saw Representative Karen Reddington Hughes, and she is now making her way to the microphone as well. Thank you so much, Representative.
Now, I think we all know that girls' sports are really not an equal playing field when you're introducing men into the scene. I really feel for the families that have been impacted by this because, yes, there are girls that lose out on scholarships because they are not competing against girls. I don't know how we got here, but we need to change this because it certainly has impacted people in a very negative way. And I would agree with the representative that had mentioned that the women's rights have really been set back by this. It certainly is not respectful to women in general. As far as the parental rights are concerned, I don't know how we ever got there either because there was a time frame where children were not even able to be treated if they had a medical condition until their parents were notified. We have gone full bore, okay, and changed that entirely. So now you have a situation where the school is going to tell the parent what is best for the parent's child. This is really sad because I think that what is happening is you are getting a disconnect. You're going to have the school system that is doing the role of the parent, and you're having parents that can no longer trust the school system because the children are going to school. They're being told that if they so choose to be different than they are at home, then this is their safe spot to do that. And their parents have no indication or knowledge of what is going on because this goes on during the school day. When the doors close, everything goes back to normal in their household, and basically they are being encouraged to live two separate lives. I think that there has to be a coming together because school systems have to work with the families. I don't think that the intentions are always bad on the part of the teachers. I think that they are misguided. So I am supporting these bills because I think that to do anything else would be to be standing in the line of a ability to change that we really need to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. Do we have any other legislators that I have missed? Okay, then with that, we are going to go to the Reverend Abraham Hernandez.
Good morning. I have the distinct honor and pleasure for over a decade serving as Executive Director of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference chapter in Connecticut. In these years, I have not yet seen the uproar of parents that we represent in over 300 Hispanic evangelical churches in the state when it comes to parental rights. To know that, well, I've heard several times, countless of parents who say, Reverend, please help me understand this. If I don't send my child to school for a few days or weeks, I would be having DCF knocking on my door, saying you are an irresponsible parent who does not care about the future of your child. Yet, now our government wants to tell us, once you send your kids to school, you have no rights, you're stripped of all your rights. Please help me reconcile that. That is what truly concerns us as Hispanic parents and people of faith in the state in regards to these efforts to undermine parental rights. I also played sports since I was 6, 7 years of age. Aspired as every kid to be being seen on the big screen, and had the opportunity to play collegiate sports also. And to know that in this age, there are many who advocate for their rights, in many cases rightfully so, of others, fight for those rights. But the question that also stymies me is, who's fighting for a girl's rights? Who's fighting for her kids' rights? As we've heard from some of our speakers earlier, it's science is science. And we can't try and bend those natural rules. So I do stand with tens of thousands of Hispanic evangelicals and residents in the state of Connecticut to say that these are two bills that we are fighting for in this legislative session. And we will continue to do whatever we can to let our voices be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Hernandez. We will open it up for Q&A in just a moment, but first, our final speaker is Christopher Healy, the Executive Director of the Connecticut Catholic Public Affairs Conference.
Thank you, Peter. I'll try to be mercifully brief, but I want to say that I've also had the pleasure of being a member of a Board of Education for 6 years. So I have that perspective as well as the perspective of many Catholic parents who, majority of Catholic children obviously, go to public schools. And we care about kids inherently. A couple things that I just wanted to follow up on that have been said. First of all, we're not denouncing teachers, we're not denouncing administrators. The reason we're here is the state has been unclear. They provided guidelines first in 2017 and then just recently, which continued to leave open the level of doubt about parental notification. We are not dismissing or rejecting the rights of children who have gender dysphoria. They have certain rights when they come to school. We understand that. But the rights of parents have been abrogated by the state. All we're saying is let's have a hearing and let's have a standard rule that applies to the entire state of Connecticut. And we all know that if there are parents who do not measure up, there are ways to adjudicate that through DCF and probate courts, etc. But the absurdity of the law or the guidelines is this, that somehow these things are kept secret from everybody. If a school does not tell parents a children is exhibiting gender dysphoria, well, everyone in the school knows about it, and the parents don't know about it. So we are basically allowing the state to keep secrets, and that's just wrong, period. It's a black and white issue. It's wrong. Secondly, on school sports, the issue of Title IX is one that women's rights advocates have correctly followed and implemented, and to great success. And now all of that has been turned upside down. And sadly, the Biden administration is now injecting a new set of federal policies that I just want to be clear on, that I think our congressional delegation should be aware of and reject, which basically will say that the discrimination issue under Title IX, which used to be based on gender, will now be based on sexual orientation, which again will dilute Title IX if these laws go forward through the federal government. And finally, I really urge the governor, but in particular Attorney General Tong, to clarify his position that he has taken legally by becoming a friend of the court in two cases, one in Massachusetts concerning the Ludlow School District, which was referred to earlier. A few days ago, he's appeared on a local radio station and seemed to hedge a little bit and said that his point was he didn't want teachers to rat out, that was his quote, rat out children. We're saying that the school districts have a responsibility to inform teachers. Whether he thinks that's ratting out or not, I don't know what that legal term comes from. I wasn't aware ratting out was a legal term. But he needs to clarify that. And I think he owes that to the citizens of this state. Finally, it's unfair also to ask teachers to take this responsibility. Teachers have enough to do. I know, I worked at a school, I worked for a school board, I was on a school board. They have enough to do without having to carry this burden without the participation of the parents. That's another burden we're putting on teachers, which I think is unfair to them. And of course, also there's issues of, prone abuse, people, in school districts making up their own rules. In some districts, parents are informed. In some districts, they're not. And to those who say, well, we want to leave education, local control is important, I think we need to have a reality check. Literally everything in our public education system is mandated by the state. The curriculum, the hours, who teaches, under what accreditation purposes. So the idea that we can't have a uniform law that protects children is absurd. We really hope the leadership of the Education Committee will give us a hearing. That's all we're asking for. Give us a public hearing. Let the people be heard. Let the votes be counted. And let's try to restore some order, sanity, and safety for our children and the rights, divine rights of parents, the natural rights of parents. Thank you.
I'm reminded of a line from a U.S. Supreme Court decision 100 years ago: children are not mere creatures of the state.